The last thing Commander Jack Raleigh remembered before waking up in the dust was the laughter of his captors. Not cheerful laughter, not the kind you share over a drink, but the smug, self-satisfied chuckle of a bureaucracy that thought it had solved its human problem. They had stripped him of his ship, mocked his species as tool apes with delusions of grandeur, and hurled him down to a planet so dead it made a graveyard look lively. No air, no oceans, no forests, not even bacteria. Just rocks, silence, and the smug echo of alien condescension. He sat up, spat grit, and muttered to himself, "Well, they're going to regret that." Jack wasn't angry. Anger was inefficient. He was a pilot, which meant he was used to thinking in vectors, not emotions. His heart rate slowed, his eyes adjusted, and somewhere in the back of his head, a list began forming. Humans, when deprived of resources, didn't die quietly. They built. They schemed. They made lists. The dead world stretched out before him like a hardware store that had exploded. Jagged ridges of metallic or poked through the crust, veins of frozen minerals gleamed beneath cracked stone, and in the distance, what looked suspiciously like the wreckage of old alien colonies shimmered under starlight. He chuckled. They left me on a rock full of spare parts. Bless their incompetent little hearts. He got to work. At first, it looked ridiculous. A lone human in a battered flight suit, chipping at stone with a makeshift pick, stacking alloys into neat piles like some obsessive-compulsive archaeologist. He scavenged wiring from long-dead alien probes, welded frames out of hull fragments, and rewired circuits with a kind of reckless confidence only a pilot could manage. Days turned to weeks, and weeks into months, and slowly the impossible began to take shape. The aliens who had dumped him there, an alliance of civilized species who consider humanity too unpredictable for their fragile peace, checked in periodically. Their drones hovered at the edges of the atmosphere, scanning for signs of life. They expected to find a corpse, maybe a skeleton in a flight suit they could mock in their reports. Instead, they began spotting heat blooms, strange energy readings, unfamiliar power signatures. At first they assumed it was malfunction. Then, as months passed, they grew uneasy. "What is the human doing down there?" hissed an Ashtari diplomat, her 8 eyes narrowing at the sensor logs. "Something primitive," sneered a Dravani warlord. "He'll tire. They always do." But humans didn't tire. Humans were the species that had once strapped themselves to exploding fuel tanks just to see what was on the other side of the sky. Jack Raleigh didn't just build shelters. He built reactors from scavenged coils. He constructed pressure domes from slagged alien hulls. He mapped the planet's crust like a mechanic poking at a stubborn engine, then drilled down and found what he needed: fissile material, rare isotopes, frozen hydrogen. The planet wasn't dead, it was potential, waiting for someone crazy enough to light the fuse. "Step 1, he muttered, wiping soot off his brow. "Engines." The first time the planet shuddered under his jury-rigged thrusters, the galaxy noticed. The monitoring drones panicked. The Alliance's council chambers erupted in shrieks, hisses, and frantic blinks of bioluminescent limbs. "The ape has installed propulsion? That world is barren." "Not anymore," came the grim reply. When they hailed him, desperate to understand, Jack appeared on their screens smiling pleasantly, grease on his face and sparks popping behind him. "Hello there. You dumped me on your garbage rock. Thought I'd tidy it up. Don't worry, I'm keeping it minimalist, just strapping a few rockets on the basement." "Human, this is forbidden," snapped a counselor with mandibles clicking in outrage. "Planets are not vessels." Jack shrugged. "They are if you add engines." That was the thing about humans. They smiled when they said the most horrifying things. The galaxy watched in mounting horror as months turned to a year and the dead world became something else. Jack converted tectonic plates into stabilizers, carved launch bays into canyons, wired the crust with conduits that glowed like veins of molten light. What had once been a barren rock now pulsed with artificial power. Alien fleets were dispatched to stop him. They didn't return. Jack had built defenses, turrets made from twisted satellites, railguns forged from asteroid cannons, missile silos hidden beneath mountains. The fleets underestimated him, assuming one human couldn't outthink thousands. They forgot that pilots think in 3 dimensions, in split seconds, in impossible odds. He turned the planet itself into a dogfighter, dodging orbital bombardments with tectonic thrusters and counter-striking with planetary cannons. By the 2nd year, the whispers had begun. Is he building a Starship? That's impossible. Then why is it moving? For yes, slowly, impossibly, the planet was no longer orbiting its star. Its trajectory had shifted. Jack Raleigh was flying it. He appeared again on their comms, smiling that infuriating human smile, sipping from a cup of coffee he'd somehow managed to brew in the apocalypse. You know, he said conversationally, back on Earth we used to joke about fixing things with duct tape. Honestly, I miss duct tape. But planetary engines? Not bad as a substitute. The counselors shouted, threatened, pleaded. Jack remained polite, charming, infuriatingly calm. When asked what he wanted, he only said, "Oh, nothing big. Just stretching my legs. I'll let you know when I'm close." They realized, too late, that he was piloting his improvised starship directly toward the core worlds of the Alliance. Panic spread. Species that had mocked humanity now begged for intervention. Warlords who once demanded Earth subjugation now pulled fleets back to defend their own worlds. The galactic order unraveled under the shadow of a single man flying a planet like it was his personal fighter jet. But Jack wasn't alone. That was the real twist. Because by the 3rd year, signals began arriving. Quiet transmissions, hidden pings in human code. Earth knew. Earth had always known. The aliens had thought they'd exiled one man to die. In reality, they had handed humanity a perfect test site. Jack wasn't abandoned, he was the point man. When the planet ship finally emerged from interstellar drift into the core systems, the galaxy beheld a nightmare. It wasn't a barren world anymore. It was a fortress bristling with weapons, its crust glowing with reactor fire, thrusters burning like the gaze of some mechanical god. And at its heart, one human pilot at the helm, whistling a jaunty Earth tune as if he were parallel parking a car. "Good news," Jack said cheerfully over open comms. "This planet is now under new management. We'll be offering tours shortly. Entry fee, unconditional surrender." The fleets that tried to oppose him broke like waves against a cliff. His weapons tore through them with surgical precision, and when prisoners were taken, he treated them with politeness so unnerving it felt like cruelty. "Would you like some water? Earth custom. Very refreshing. Oh, don't mind the cannons warming up behind you." The galaxy finally understood the human paradox. Friendly, courteous, inventive, and utterly unstoppable when cornered. As the Alliance collapsed in chaos, a final transmission arrived from Earth itself. A calm human voice, smooth and almost bored. Phase 1 successful. Retrieval complete. Begin Phase 2. The aliens never learned what Phase 2 was. They only knew the trap had been set long before Jack ever landed on that dead world. He hadn't just built a starship. He had baited the galaxy into revealing its weaknesses. The entire ordeal had been a mission, a test, a demonstration, a message. Humans didn't just survive exile. They turned exile into invasion. And as Jack Raleigh piloted his planet ship deeper into the trembling heart of the galaxy, he smiled that terrible, polite smile and said softly, almost kindly, "Next stop, everywhere."